Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference wrapped June 7th, and the sheer amount of announcements coming out of it was staggering. I have to say, based on a totally scientific study of social media and podcast land, not scientific, the excitement level of both developers and end users is exponentially higher than anything in recent memory. I wanted to take some time to not only digest the info coming from Apple before making this video, but also all the articles, podcasts, and YouTube videos that did such a good job of expanding on what was announced. And at times, they uncovered new information. So why the heck is a cartoon character talking about WWDC? I don't know. Why not? It seems like injecting a little fun into things can't hurt. And besides, people have started to take tech way too seriously. And I don't know, maybe listening to a cartoon will keep it in perspective. Yeah, I know, I'm not holding my breath. One of the interesting things this year was how aggressive Apple was at getting in front of the podcast market. They provided top executives as guests on a bunch of different podcasts, so you'll see some of the same names pop up in the various recommendations. So much happened at this year's WWDC, not to mention all the great podcasts and articles and videos and Apple's own podcast PR blitz, that I decided to break this up into multiple videos. So be sure to subscribe and punch the bell icon so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. Also, I'll put links to everything that I talk about in the description below. Check it out. It's all great stuff, and especially the podcast. Give them all a subscription and see what you think. All right, let's go.
The new Mac Pro.
Longtime listeners of ATP, the Accidental Tech Podcast, will think of this as the Siracusa event. If you don't know, he's John Siracusa is one of the hosts of ATP, and it's a long-running discussion about his love for the Mac Pro and refusing to give up the old version that he had, the old cheese grater tower. So everybody was watching with bated breath on John's behalf for this announcement. And as you can imagine, they did talk about this on their ATP Live. ATP does a live show every year from WWDC. It's always worth a listen. They talk about it in great detail, that is the Mac Pro from this event. And here's Siracusa's review.
God, it's expensive, but let me tell you, the insides of this are not. I wish this was a video podcast. This rack is no good. Like I can bend this in half with my hands. It's very thin. It's not clear even how it goes in. There's no multiple positions that it goes in. Here's where you put the water and it gets steamed. The door keeps flopping open and closed. It doesn't seem like it has the right spring tension. The knobs are okay.
So the knob feel is passable?
Yeah, it's simple. It's just got the two knobs. I'm very disappointed in the whole rest of the thing. I wouldn't want this in my house with this flappy thing and the steam. And this tray is just terrible. I've never seen one of these before, but I'm very disappointed in it.
Yeah.
Okay, he wasn't really reviewing the Mac Pro there. That was a toaster oven. And if you want to know why he was reviewing a toaster oven, then you have to go download and listen to the whole episode. And also, if you want to actually hear his thoughts on the Mac Pro, which are really good. All of their thoughts. That's Casey Liss and Marco Arment and John Siracusa, ATP. And that's episode 329, Mac Pro Day is the title. It's well worth your time, and it should be a weekly listen. So subscribe, listen, yada, yada, yada. Other than the ATP response, a couple of other good resources to check out for this. A YouTube video from Jonathan Morrison of TLD. He has several actually that go on into the Mac Pro announcement, as well as the high-end monitor that they announced. And it's definitely worth a watch. You should check that out. From the website, there's a great article that I'll link to below by John Alper that goes in depth into the Mac Pro. It's definitely something you want to check out. All that I'll add, since I wasn't there, I didn't get to see the Mac Pro, and it's really, honestly, probably not a computer for me. And I think that's the biggest thing that I want to add, because, again, seeing this filter through the non-tech press and to people that don't really understand, all they see is that Apple announced this super expensive computer and even more expensive monitor, which is all true. But here's the thing, not every product has to be for everyone. And Apple has famously kind of abandoned the high-end user in recent years, and this is them charging headfirst back into that market, and it looks like they did a fantastic job. So when you're looking at this, forget all the tech specs and all of that. Understand that the market for this probably isn't you. It's high-end video editors and people working for companies like the big Hollywood studios or even production houses for TV and things of that nature. As Apple pointed out in the keynote announcement, a reference monitor, which is a monitor that produces the truest colors that all of these companies need, is around, I think it was around $43,000. So that's the game you're playing in when you're looking at this kind of stuff. This is a workstation, not a computer, in the sense of computer the way we think of it to do our email, or even if you do your own video editing or things on YouTube. This is probably overkill for you, but it's important because keeping these type of users in the ecosystem, I think, really has a great trickle-down effect, and not only from Apple's perspective, but also from the suggestions and the work that the people using these type of devices may contribute back into the ecosystem as a whole. So it's a good thing. Don't get caught up on how much it costs. Again, this is probably not for you. Good thread that got passed around Twitter, and I'll link to that below as well.
watchOS 6.
Next up is watchOS. And there's some interesting stuff in this one, even though there weren't a ton of things. But let's start with what I thought was one of the most interesting, and that's the new health tracking. What they've done is they've added something really important for women, cycle tracking. This is great because most of the apps out there for this type of thing, security researchers have shown are really shady and collect information and sell the information and all of this type of really shady stuff. So it's great that Apple, with their focus on privacy, are giving women much needed resource here for this. So that's just really, really good. The other biggie was the addition of a noise alert. The basic idea is this, that it'll alert you, if you enable this, it'll alert you when the noise levels reach a certain level that would be harmful to your hearing. And there's a lot more that goes into it. It is really a nice new feature, and again shows Apple's dedication to the health sphere in terms of the Apple Watch. The Activity app is also going to give you more information about your progress over time, which is really good. So if it notices certain trends over, say, 90 days, that you're reducing your move, calories, steps, whatever, it'll give you coaching and encouragement and information about that, about those trends, those health trends. It's actually an area that I want to see Apple expand more, which they are. I see so much opportunity here for things such as UV tracking. They already give you the temperature if you start and do an outdoor workout or a walk or run or something like that. And so it seems like it would be fairly simple to pull in the UV data that they already give you if you open up the weather app on your watch. Those types of things I see as being really great potential. And there's going to be, in the new platform announcements with iOS and macOS Catalina, the ability to bring iPad apps over to the Mac. I would love to see Apple create an iPad app for the health app that you have on the phone. And the reason being is it wouldn't be the thing that gets input. It would purely be something that reads the data from what you store in iCloud with your health app. But it seems like it would be such a great opportunity to give you more detailed graphs and information about your health, and maybe could display it in a much easier to read and digest fashion. So hopefully, maybe in a couple of 2, 3, 4 versions, maybe that they could do something like this. Other than health tracking, you get a couple of extra apps, voice memos, which is nice. That can be very useful if you're out on the run, literally. They've also added a calculator, which I guess is useful. They have some new watch faces, which are really nice, and they look really, really good. I wish, like every single other podcaster and person who follows Apple, I wish they would open up watch faces to the general developer public and would allow them to make watch faces. Outside of the health tracking, the biggest announcement was the addition of a standalone watch app store. And I was skeptical at first, but the way that they displayed it looks pretty nice. It does seem like the next logical step. because the goal, it seems, even from Apple's point of view from the beginning, was to have this device independent. And right now it's not. It's dependent on having an iPhone. If you don't have an iPhone, you're kind of out of luck. It has to be tethered to an iPhone. Federico Viticci had an interesting thought that he shared on Connected, the podcast that he hosts along with Mike Hurley and Stephen Hackett. Actually, it was something that he said one of his Italian friends had posited to him. Let's listen to that.
From my good Italian friend Diego Petrucci, who was actually at WWDC with his team. I will find a link to the tweet. So the theory was the following, and I really want to hear what you guys think. He said something along the lines of, I wonder if Apple pushing watch independence with the App Store and SwiftUI is part of a bigger plan to get Android users to actually use the Apple Watch on its own, appreciate the Apple Watch, and eventually switch back to iPhone, iPad, whatever.
I think this is a really interesting point, and I see it as being completely plausible that Apple's thinking along those lines of enticing Android users, because, I mean, why not? But I feel that it's deeper than that. It's more tied to the idea of making the watch independent from the phone, so it's own device. And yeah, the offshoot of that is it's going to be more attractive probably to people in the Android universe, but really I don't know that that is the big goal. It's a really interesting thought. And you should check out that entire episode. Connected in of itself is just a great podcast. And that episode, 247, You Never Want the Egg, it has all kinds of great stuff related to WWDC. And they're going into way more detail with way more information than I can do here. And you absolutely should not only listen to it, but subscribe if you're, even mildly in the Apple and tech universe. It's a good all-around podcast. I think that's enough for today. In the coming videos, we'll talk about iOS and macOS and iPadOS. Yeah. And we'll delve into topics like accessibility and security, privacy, and about how those things took a big jump, a big improvement with what was announced in WWDC. All right. So if you don't want to miss those, be sure to subscribe and hit the little bell icon. You've got to hit that little bell icon. Otherwise, even if you're subscribed, you don't know a new video has been released. I don't know. It's a YouTube thing. All right. See you around.